Hi, this is Olivia Ford reporting for The Body. Welcome to This Positive Life. Richard, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Richard Brodsky. I'm HIV positive since 1997. I'm brain cancer survivor since 2002. I'm also a marathon runner.
Well, welcome. Welcome to This Positive Life.
Thank you.
Let's start at the very beginning of your personal history with HIV. Can you start by describing how you found out you're HIV positive?
Yeah, it was back in 1997, and I had been involved with some men, and I really wasn't that aware much about HIV and AIDS. I didn't even know there was a difference, and I thought if a person were relatively healthy, you don't get these diseases. I was really, really grossly uninformed, and one time I was with a guy, and he said to me, you know, you ought to get tested because I'm HIV positive.
Hmm. Was this someone that you had been with a number of times? Was it someone that you saw?
A couple of times, sure. Yeah.
And you were married at the time as
Right.
well, so you had the two relationships.
Yeah, it was very difficult because I just really, really love my wife a lot, and having these bisexual feelings, you know, I guess I wish I could stay faithful, but that wasn't the case back then. Although I have been faithful to my wife for the last 8 years.
That's wonderful.
Okay.
So now, how did that? Were you in several relationships starting from the beginning of your marriage, or did that sort of come about a little bit later?
I was always faithful to my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, when I was in Iran, there was a couple of gay incidents, but that was before I was married, and you know, I came back to America, and you know, the next thing to do is, you know, I was an architect. You know, get married, raise a family, which is what we did. I was, you know, a fairly successful architect. I found I was gaining a little bit of weight. I wanted to get back in shape. I was reading some men's magazines, and I guess the male body, you know, it is attractive. So is the female body, and that's sort of how it started.
How old were you then in '97?
In '97, well, I'm 58 now. So yeah, I think I was about like 46, something like that.
Okay. So now this gentleman that you were with had said you better get tested because I'm positive. Did you go and get tested immediately, or was it a while before?
I got tested immediately. I don't remember if I did or not, and the doctor said, no, you won't have any results, you know, for a 3-month period.
Oh, so you mean right 3 months after exposure you
Right.
couldn't get tested? Right, exactly. That does make sense. So then did you wait for the 3-month window period and then
Right.
go?
Right.
Okay. So what was the circumstance basically of getting your result? You went to the doctor?
I went to the doctor, and he sort of said, well, these tests, you know, there's a possibility that you're HIV positive, and they said, well, there's a probability, and he kept on saying it like that, and gradually, you know, he said, well, it looks like it's 99.4% certain that you are. You know, I started crying. I have a wife, and you know, I love my wife, and he said something, well, maybe you don't have to tell her because, you know, there's another test that will confirm it 100%. And no, you don't understand. I have to tell my wife. And I wasn't sure. I mean, the way I saw it, there were 3 choices. She would either, actually there were 4. She might kill me on the spot. But the 3 choices were, you know, we could get divorced. She could have, you know, everything. I could take a small studio in the city and, you know, continue my practice. We could remain married, which was what I was really hoping, you know, to be able to do, or I could kill myself. It brings so much shame to my family. But I have 3 daughters. I don't know. I don't think I could have really done that anyhow. And I was very fortunate because Jody, she kind of like just immediately said, no, we're going to work this out. And it was a struggle at the beginning because we didn't know too much about it. And all wasn't even that much aware, but Jody did a lot of research and she found that out.
So now when you told her, it sounds like very soon after you got your diagnosis.
Right.
Now, did she know already that you had been involved intimately with?
No, because I was sort of, I was hoping I was going to be HIV negative, and I was hoping I would be able to stop this bisexual phase of my life and, remain married. I mean, we seemed like we were like the perfect couple. We had 3 lovely daughters. We both ran marathons. I had a successful architectural practice. The kids were popular. Everything was going pretty good for us. And it's like if you were going to see 100 people, we'd probably be the least likely couple. You would think there was any kind of problem like that going on.
So now you say that there was a little bit of struggle at the beginning. So you told her that you were positive. You knew that there were these 3 options, and then it turned out that she wanted to work it out. Can you talk a little bit about some of the tougher times, how it was for you, and how you ended up sort of coming to terms with your own diagnosis and the sort of future of your relationship?
I just felt very, very guilty. What had I done? I was never a drug abuser, a cigarette smoker. I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs. And why can't I control this aspect of my life? And it was just like, I tend to be a perfectionist. I can be demanding. So if I'm demanding on other people, I'm also demanding on myself. So that part of it was very frustrating. And the kids were away at camp for the summer, and anytime, let's say, I'd be in a good mood, then I'd get depressed. Like, you don't have a right to be in a good mood. Jody and I would drive to work together. It would be easy to start crying, during the work and everything. But Jody was good, she was always very supportive, and it didn't look like I was dying. I was running every day. I remember starting to take the medicine one day. I didn't take it right away. I thought I could beat the illness because I was, pretty strong and healthy. And my T cells started to go down. They were at 500 originally, and they went down to 375. And I guess I realized, better start taking the medicine. But some of the doctors back then, I remember getting sent to one doctor. I don't think he ever saw an AIDS patient before, and he was very unfeeling. He said something like, well, I hope you have life insurance. And then I think that set my wife off, and it set me off and everything. So there were times at the beginning it was very difficult.
So now, quickly, just circling back to around your diagnosis, were you ever able to talk to the man who originally suggested that you go get tested? Did you see him again? Did you remain friends?
Yeah, I might have seen him maybe once, or I was kind of annoyed at him, and that was pretty much about it. And subsequently, I think he died also.
And at the time, it sounds as if, because he was telling you to probably get tested, these were unprotected encounters, I imagine. There were no condoms used or anything like that. Okay. How soon after you told Jody did you start to tell your other family members? How old were your kids, and did you talk to them?
We did decide not to tell the children.
Okay.
We thought someday we would tell them, maybe after they were all married off. They were all around teenagers, a little bit younger. We have 3 daughters. They're 5 years apart. And, there's also a terrible stigma associated with it. So we didn't want to tell them. I think the first person we did tell was my mother. She freaked out a little bit on it, and it was difficult with each person in the family finding out and their reactions. I could say I could write a book about it, but that's pretty much what I did. I wrote a book. It was actually a gift to my wife for keeping our family loving and whole, and it was also a plea to get AIDS medicine to AIDS sufferers all over the world.
Wow, that's amazing. So now, When did you end up telling your children? Did they just find out over the natural course of time, or do they? I assume they know now because you're very public
No,
about your
yeah, of
status.
course they know now.
Yeah.
That was also difficult. My middle daughter found out first. Uh, she was reading a journal. I was actually chronicling, the whole situation, thinking one day I might write a book, and I felt really bad because I don't like lying, and it was one of the few lies I did make. I told her I was, I got it from a bloody towel at a gym, which was, kind of, it doesn't pay to lie, it really doesn't. And we said to her, do you want to talk to your sisters? Do you want to let them know? And she said no. And she seemed pretty much okay with it because she saw me running every day. And it was right around that time I ran my fastest marathon. It was like 15 months after I was diagnosed with HIV. I did a marathon in 3 hours 23 minutes. So here she is hearing that this guy's got this disease that people die from, but he seems like he's doing okay. My other daughter found out. I forget exactly how she found out. My oldest daughter, she kept it to herself, which probably wasn't too good an idea. And then I think her boyfriend found out, and he was threatening to reveal the secret of the Brodsky family that could destroy our family and everything. And I'd been keeping a journal, and I started saying to myself, wait a second, something just doesn't sound right. I'm living with this illness. I'm able to run marathons. This is not something I'm supposed to be quiet about, and if everybody keeps quiet about it, you're not going to get any AIDS advocacy. So it was at that point I said to Jody, you know what, I think I'm going to write this book. And she said it was okay. We didn't tell my youngest daughter. That was going to be, the book was pretty much done when we eventually got around to telling her. And Jody said something very funny. It's pretty much true. She said, "Don't tell your mother you're writing this book. She's going to tell you she's going to lie down on the railroad tracks if you." So finally, we didn't tell her, and the book eventually came out. And my youngest daughter said it was okay. She was I think she was like 13 at the time. And the book's Jody, the Greatest Love Story Ever Told. And it's just a love story. It's a gift to my wife.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Now, how would you say your relationships with family and friends have changed since you've been diagnosed and been so open about your HIV status?
My wife's my best friend. So, I mean, like we celebrated our 30th anniversary by running a marathon last year. The kids are a little tough on me. They see it, well, why didn't I go back to work? I was a successful architect. But it's a little hard for me. From the brain cancer, there are times I just need to lie down and rest during the day. I get headaches easily. And I just feel like it just feels right what I'm doing now.
Well, switching gears a little bit, you especially because you mentioned the brain cancer just now. Talk a little bit about what your health has been like since your HIV diagnosis. You said that your T cells started to go down a little bit. You started meds. It sounds like fairly early on. They had just started the cocktails. But yeah, please talk a little bit about your HIV health, and then also how you found out that you had brain cancer and when that was.
Okay. I've been basically on Combivir and Viracet, those two medicines, since 1997. My T cells, generally, they're always in the range of 1,000, and the viral load is undetectable. I've been very fortunate. I really haven't had, these opportunistic infections. And what happened was after I wrote this book, was getting into the brain cancer, I was going on a book tour, and it was really exciting coming back to New York. It was pretty much the most exciting week in my life. I was really looking forward to it. Jody and I were going to be running in the New York Marathon. Pfizer was considering having Jody and I as spokespeople for their medicine. I was doing a book signing at Barnes & Noble near the White House. I was doing one in Greenwich Village at their store. I was speaking at American University in NYU. So everything was really, really going good. at the book signing at Barnes and Noble, though, I had a seizure, and a few weeks later, well, Pfizer wasn't interested, you know, because it had nothing to do with being HIV positive, though. And then a few weeks later, I went from being like kind of like relatively healthy. The HIV, I never thought of myself as really being sick from it, to finding out that I had terminal brain cancer, and I was expected to only live like 2 to 4 years. And I guess I'm not like a big tough guy, and some people keep these things quiet. I remember calling my eldest daughter and like just like really, really being upset and everything. She'd been in school in Florida, and she came back, ironically, because the reason she came back is I had a book signing in Washington, D.C., and authors are not supposed to, they're just not supposed to cancel. Maybe brain cancer would have been an exception, but as long as I could stand, I wouldn't miss the book signing. So we went to Washington. We had a really nice time. It was a real bonding experience. And then, the brain cancer was like 2 days before the marathon, and it was going to be a tough winter. I messed my shoulder up pretty bad also, a bad fall. And I sort of wanted to get back to running. I would ask my doctors, when do you think I could run again? And they looked at me like they were crazy, like, well, here's a list of funeral parlors. But it was, all my doctors wanted after the surgery, they all wanted to put me on chemotherapy. I did have radiation, and I found one doctor, he's actually a board member of the foundation, Casilda Balmaceda, and she was wonderful. She said, no, you don't go on chemo, that's not for you. And I was able to start running again, and a year later I finished the New York City Marathon. Dr. Balmaceda finished it with me, and 2 years from the date of my brain surgery, Joe and I, we were flying to Africa to participate in the first ever World AIDS Marathon, and that my foundation sponsored. So I think what happened was, at a certain point, when they said I had 2 to 4 years to live, this was in November of 2002, it seemed like I was doing pretty good. I got the feeling I don't think this is going to really kill me in 2 to 4 years. And my brain oncologist suggested I start a foundation, and I said, okay, will you be a board member? And she said, yes.
Wow. And now how many years has it been then since you were given
2002. It's 2010, 2011, so it'll be, it's about 8.5 years.
Wow. How do you think you were able to beat it? It sounds that I assume you've been in remission for a number of years.
I still go for MRIs every 3 months. She keeps close tabs on how I'm doing. I did have a seizure about 2 years ago. I tend to eat healthy. I exercise. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. And I have a very loving, supportive wife. And the running, I think, really helps. Never have a foundation. I have like definite goals of what I want to accomplish with my life, which I think helps a lot. And we also sponsor these local runs on Long Island. The camaraderie of the runners, I think, also is very important. They're very supportive.
But what was the treatment like for the brain cancer? Did you undergo?
Yeah, they just gave me radiation. It wasn't too bad. I was able to even run during that time. Jody had to drive me every day. I wasn't allowed to drive for 6 months. It did not leave me with any side effects, so I was okay from that.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm glad to hear it. Definitely.
Yeah, I sort of feel like a cat. Like I've got like 3 of these lives. My wife is with me, the HIV, the brain cancer, and but I don't want to say that because I'm just very, very fortunate.
Jody, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, that's okay. Thanks for having me here.
And how did you two meet?
We're both, passionate about running. Well, now we are, but when I met him, I was in law school, and I was very busy and focused, and just having no time except to do my running and do my studying. So when he called, he told me, the rabbi gave me your number. I had gone to a neighboring synagogue and taken some courses, and the rabbi never told me, give me your number, I'm going to give it, to someone who comes to the synagogue. But Richard came and he went to a lecture there, and he gave him my number. And when he called, I was like, I don't know, the rabbi gave, I was a little questioning it. And then I told him, well, I run at this park early in the morning, you could meet me there. And so, he met me at this park in Texas. It's called Memorial Park. And the funny story is that we started running, and he was a little nervous because he hadn't run 5 miles, because I used to do 5 miles a day or 6 miles, and he hadn't run that far. So we started jogging, and then he started talking to me a little, and I just was trying to focus with the running, because when you're running, sometimes you have to concentrate on how far you're going and your breathing and everything. And then I think I told him, like, could you be a little quiet? And the story comes out years later. He told me, like, I don't know, maybe you told me to be quiet. I was like, how could you tell me to be quiet? And but we laugh about it. So we really met that way, and then he ended up really enjoying the running, and the relationship developed. I mean, besides that, but that was our first date, really, a run.
We were actually engaged 3 months later, and we were married like about a year from the time we met each other.
Yeah. So now, asking you the same question that I asked Richard, actually, from your perspective, how did you find out that Richard was HIV positive?
My girls were away in camp for the summer, so we had a couple of summers that were really nice because he worked in the city. So during the year I didn't get to see him as much. He's working really hard, but in the summer the last one went to camp, so they all were there together, upstate New York. So then we were able to spend the time together. So we're having a regular summer together. And then he called me downstairs. There was like a gym downstairs in the building where he worked, so I would go to work with him every day and help him out. And he told me to sit down. He has something to tell me, and I was like, okay. And it's like he told me like I think he first told me he's bisexual, and then it was like it was very shocking to me because there were no signs, there was never any talking about that, feelings that he had before or anything like that. And he was my best friend. We were very passionate about each other and close, so it was very shocking. And then he told me, I have to tell you something else, he's HIV positive. And it was like, all in one time to tell someone two very very serious conditions. It's well, bisexuality is a condition, but it's very shocking to find that out. So that's how he told me. And then he goes like, well, you don't have to come home with me. I don't have to come home with you tonight. You could think about what you want to do. But we were very close, and I even for 1 minute, even Richard has written a book about this situation, our story, and the story is that I never for a minute said, no, don't come home with me, and I have to rethink this whole situation. I kind of knew he said he wanted to remain together, and something this had happened, and he got involved, and so I just said, well, find out about this. He told me, I did a little research. I think people are living with it now. So, it was all a lot that we had to, I did research, on hotlines and found out about, what you do when someone first gets diagnosed. So, yeah, but my initial reaction was, shocking, surprising.
So now, what was the first thing that you did that helped you come to terms with Richard's diagnosis and helped you get over some of that shock?
I think was talking like years ago. I mean, he's been infected with the virus. How many years is it now?
Since '97, so it's about almost 14 years.
14 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I did was there were a lot of hotlines that you can call. So I really did call people, talk to people. Then we found 3 doctors. We did some research that would be able to possibly, be his doctor with this. And so we went to interview like 3 different doctors, and the doctors would give us information. We felt like who was the most knowledgeable, what were their ideas, how to start treatment or not. So I think, but the calling on the hotlines, I'm a very talkative person. I like to I don't keep things in. So I got on the line with people and would talk to people that I never met before, and tell them the situation and what should we be doing. So that really helped me. And I guess I felt like sometimes people would say, like another woman would have said, like, you know, that's disgusting and I don't want to be with you, and you know, how could this happen? And I felt more like sorry for him. Yeah.
Was, besides the hotlines that you went to and talking to doctors and things, was there any place, this really is a question for both of you, that you went for support as far as in person? Did you go to support groups, or did you ever meet anybody else, any other wives or partners of
Right.
HIV positive folks? Did you do any of that kind of
No,
thing?
I don't think
Not
we did,
really,
no.
not really.
Mm.
Yeah.
It really wasn't kind of our thing to do. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think we like wallowed in. I mean, maybe we got over it like initially. It took
Right.
some time. I'm trying to think.
Yeah. I mean, we used more of the doctor as our sense of support. You know, the one doctor we ended up going with was a small practice, so it was just really sole practitioner. So maybe we found out information from him, and he would constantly tell us about, you know, okay, do you understand like the safe sex, and you understand exactly what you have to do, and you know, so I think we looked to him for our support. And
It sounds as if you all are very good support for each other as well. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's for sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's
Right.
why I guess you figured it out.
Right.
This was my gift to my wife.
Yeah, hold it up, cause the
Yeah, no,
things
she's
say, yeah.
really just the best. Donald Trump, he may have more money than me, but he doesn't have a wife on the cover of a book.
Okay. Right one soon.
That would be wonderful. So now, since you touched on this a little bit in talking about your going to your doctor for information, how has Richard's diagnosis affected the intimate aspects of your relationship and your
Right.
sex life? Was there a lot of change in that area? Or?
You know, a little bit of changes, because you do have to be, you know, very cautious, you know, with you know, I mean, we're still intimate, and I'm not scared about it. I think, you know, maybe people would say, like, do you feel like you might contract the, you know, the virus? And I guess I felt like, you know, that's part of our relationship. We are, you know, intimate still, and we know how to practice safe sex, so we're very careful.
I think the other thing is, we've also read in a survey of 93 couples where one was positive and the other was negative over a 5-year period. If they were using protection, none of them spread the virus to the other person.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was somewhat comforting for both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Condoms are very effective. It's true.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah.
No, thank you for that. So now switching gears to what brought you together, it sounds like marathon running. How did you decide to, each of you individually, because it sounds like you ran before you knew each other.
Right.
How did you decide to run your first marathon?
I think we were, you know, I was always just very passionate. I mean, now I'm like 56. I've been running since I'm like 20. So it's always been my, you know, it's like therapeutic for me. You know, even with his illnesses, it's helpful for me with my work and everything, just to go out and run every day. So, you know, I was like an everyday runner, and when we came to New York together, you know, Richard, we've started running a lot together, and New York, like, it's so popular, the New York Marathon, that we were like, well, you know, maybe we should try and see if we could do that. So it was a goal that we set. You know, it was kind of like a fun thing that, you know, we're going to register, we'll see if we get in, and so I think we tried the first time, and then, you know, after that, it's very, you know, New York is amazing. Like with the marathon, you feel like you're the greatest athlete. So after you run your first marathon, it sort of just gets to you. And also, I was years ago not the fastest runner, but I have a lot of endurance. So, you know, we were able to do it, and it sort of became like our hobby together, that we would train for it, because you have to go out for long runs, like 15 miles one Sunday, then the next Sunday is 16, 17. You know, you build up the mileage. So I guess it just became, you know, like a hobby of both of ours, and kind of a nice hobby, because we run with a running club, and a lot of people are there themselves, like the other person in the couple doesn't run. So for us, it's kind of nice, because we go together, and, you know, I mean, years ago, I think, you know, once it was, you know, muddy and raining in Houston, I'm like, I'm going to run around the park. It's like, you could go, I'm not running, it's too muddy, but maybe as much as he liked to look at me, how could you do that? When you're a jogger, you're both the same passion about the running, you know, you relate to each other, and then you could, you know, be there to support them, like, you know, I know why you want to go out, because, you know, it's a positive thing. So.
We really, it's a bond, the marathon running, and Jody's great, because when we go to Africa every year, we sponsor this World AIDS Marathon, And I don't know if I could just show you this picture for a minute. I kind of really like this picture a lot. It was.
You know what? Hold it up for a second so that it's over your faces. I just want to make sure that it gets seen. There we go. Okay.
So
yeah.
anyhow, it was a very chance picture. It was the 2006 World AIDS Marathon, and this guy Zeus got in the way, and Zeus is the supreme god in Greek mythology.
And what's the next?
It's sort of like if you go on the website, the caption sort of read like, even Zeus came, from another time to see how his modern day marathon was faring, and may this be a sign that a cure or vaccine is in the near future. But we just love going there. We've been to Africa 6 times, and it really gives us a sense of purpose because we have 3 daughters here, and I sort of feel that if Jody and I were living in Africa, who would our daughters be one of the 11,500,000 orphans living in sub-Saharan Africa. So when we go there, we also sponsor these orphan dinner dances, and they are such uplifting experiences. It's sort of it's the side of Africa that you don't see on television. There are these kids there. We see them also. They are they're poor, they're skinny, they're undernourished. They don't have shoes. They are barefoot. But I know when we do these orphan dinner dances, we've done them for 2,800 orphans, and we like to go back to the same place, and the kids remember us. And I don't know who enjoys it more, if the kids do or if we do. But we really enjoy it, and then we have these children's walks, and we have our board members are Kenyan, so they're really good. They just organize everything, and it's a joint collaboration. We pay for some things, they pay for some other things, and it just works.
How did you decide to start doing international work, and why Kenya, and why a marathon? What was the process of deciding to do that?
Originally I wanted to go to South Africa because they had the worst problems, but it was tough getting anybody interested, and then we tried going to Ethiopia, and that didn't work out, and somebody said, hey, I know you're working on getting your foundation established, but in the meantime you can use my foundation to raise funds. In 2004 we were able to get an orphanage started for 60 orphans, and we were able to donate some money to other AIDS projects in Africa, and some AIDS research at the University of Florida at Gainesville. But we always felt we could do better. It's not even just for the HIV/AIDS. It's there's another statistic that UNICEF put out there. There's 25,000. I'm not saying it wrong. 25,000 children who are dying worldwide every day, and the leading cause of death is pneumonia, which they get from not clean drinking water. So that's kind of a real problem in itself. And when they talk about we're beating AIDS and we're making remarkable strides, I don't find it necessary to be completely true, because right now you're having I think it's about 2 million people dying every year. That's still a lot of people. It's about 5,500 people dying every day, and you're getting 7,200 people newly infected. So it doesn't sound so good. You got a lot of people dying, and you're getting more people than who are dying who are being infected. So there's just a lot of awareness that needs to be raised about it.
And it sounds like you've done a lot of awareness raising in your own local community as well, because you do local events, right? You do a 5K run and walk. Can you talk a little bit about the local events you've done and what the reaction's been in the neighborhood and everything?
We really get caught up in it. In fact, what we do is we're going to have our 4th annual event in June, but we also do, we've done 3 of them already, 3 free runs. We don't charge anybody for them, and the idea is we really want to try and get people with HIV and cancer exercising, because I think the running has helped me, and I'd like others to get that benefit as well. So they're really nice events. We get tons of food. We give out, well, at that event we give out $45 in toiletry gift items, and we say to everybody, listen, even if you're healthy, just take it, and just give it to someone living with HIV or cancer, because the thing about these events is we don't want anybody to know who's living with HIV or cancer and who's healthy.
So now, just in a couple of questions and wrapping up,
Yes.
how do you think Richard's having HIV has changed each of you individually, and how do you think it's changed you as a couple?
And do you,
I think I used to be kind of like a lot quieter, kind of like tended to not get into any kind of trouble, or I was an architect. I had a decent practice, and I don't know, everything seemed kind of like very normal and everything. And now, I guess now that I have a foundation and I realize there's so many like wrong things that are happening in the world, I tend to be like kind of like a lot more outspoken.
And now, Jody, what about you?
I guess more that you try to, as an adult, plan your future and think like, well, in 20 years we're going to be doing this and we're going to be doing that, and with an illness, in years to come, I say, like, if someone has an experience, a person with an illness, they just don't know the ramifications, like what happens, like, in our family, it's been, we've been fine, but, it does differ. He was the main breadwinner, I had to go back to work, and so many things changed like that, so, I think it changed me that just to worry more about like day by day, like if we're going to worry about so much. I mean, you'd like to say you're worried about your retirement, this and that, but with him, it's like, thank goodness he has these years he has. I think it's made us strong together, and realize that we're going to do that because that's what we'd like to do, and maybe you can't. I mean, we've done that for the last several years. I can't listen to what everyone else is saying because. I mean, we would have never gotten our story out if we listened to anyone, because, in our family it was like, don't talk about that, don't publicize it, quiet, and that's just not, what we are, what we believe in, so I think that's how it's changed us. Yeah.
Very well said. I don't know what I can say.
Indeed. Well, you know what? On that note, we'll bring this interview to a close. It was such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
For
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.